Back in the days during the Maurya, Gupta, and Chola empires, how much did international relations matter? Very similar question. Like today, if you don't appreciate or please US wishes, you face the fear of sanctions. So what kind of leverage did the Indian empires have over other nations back in the day? What sort of hard power did we use on others? Okay, that's an interesting question. So how much did international relations matter 2,500 years ago? International relations did matter. um, like I just said, we had excellent relations. We had a treaty, an alliance with the Seleucid Empire, and the Seleucid Empire gained a lot as a consequence of this treaty. They gained uh, cutting edge weaponry, war elephants with mahouts, and using that, Seleucus Nicator was able to carve a pretty gigantic empire for himself. And if you look at Ashoka's inscriptions, one of our greatest emperors, Ashok, and you will see that he was aware of who was ruling Egypt at the time. So before Ashok came his father Bindusar. Before Bindusar came Ashok's grandfather Chandragupta Maurya. And before Chandragupta Maurya was a different dynasty, which was the Nanda dynasty. Now, during the Nanda period, Alexander the Greek tried to invade India. While he was on his way to India, before he conquered Persia, he had conquered Egypt. He didn't conquer Egypt; he just walked into Egypt, and the Egyptians allowed him to walk in because at the time Egypt was a vassal of Persia, and the Egyptians thought that Alexander is bringing freedom to us. Well, it didn't quite work that way. Alexander installed a governor called Ptolemy in Greece, in Egypt, and after Alexander died, Ptolemy's descendants became the kings of Egypt. Okay, so during Ashok's time, there was a king called Ptolemy in Greece, and in Ashok's inscriptions, he is referred to as Ptolemy in Greece, in Egypt. So our emperors were aware of what was happening in Egypt. They would have been aware of what was happening elsewhere also in the world. It's not like we were isolated, insulated. We knew what was happening in various parts of the world, but those days we did not have the speed of transportation and communication that we have today. So things were different at the time. And far away things didn't matter as much as they do today. Today, the US sitting wherever they are, they can rule essentially the whole world, right? And they can control the world and influence the world. Those days, Egypt could not influence or control India, and we could not do the same thing, vice versa, except by faraway means. Uh, that's how it was. And during the Roman time, Rome used to complain that they were, giving away all their gold to India because the Roman population was very fond of Indian spices, which were the best spices in the world, and they would spend fortunes purchasing spices from India, which would come from thousands of kilometers away by the sea route or land route, or maybe a mixture of both. So India was draining the wealth, the gold of Rome. So you had international relations, you had trade relations. International relations happened through trade, through warfare, through many other means. Uh, During the Gupta Empire, uh, also these things mattered. So, for example, when the Gupta Empire started rising, it arose out of Magad, out of Patliputra. The first Gupta king was Katodkach, who was based out of Patliputra, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me right. And the initial base of the Gupta Empire was Patliputra. It was a Bihari empire, Magadhan empire. Um, and then eventually they were able to conquer the whole of the subcontinent and more. Even Bahlik, which is Gandhar, Uzbekistan, that region, and so on. So during that time, when the Gupta Empire was rising, it had not yet taken over the whole of India. At that time, you had the Mahakshatrapas, the Western Kshatraps, who were ruling in Western India, Gujarat mainly. And they were fabulously wealthy because they controlled the ports that traded with the West. So that in those days, it was the Western ports in Gujarat, in Western India, that were the hubs of trade with Rome and Egypt and Mesopotamia and so on. And they were fabulously wealthy as a consequence. And so the Gupta, I think it was, which Gupta empire was it? Was it Chandragupta? Probably Chandragupta, who finally ended the rule of the Mahakshatrapas and took over Gujarat and took over these ports and the great shrine of Somnath and so on. And that was a great source of wealth. Not the shrine of Somnath, but the ports. You see, so international relations mattered. They really did matter. During the Chola Empire, international relations mattered. The Sri Vijaya Empire was misrepresenting its relationship with the Cholas to China. And the Cholas launched a maritime invasion of Sri Vijaya. How far is Sri Vijaya, Indonesia? Have you seen the map? So they were able to launch a maritime invasion and conquer Sri Vijaya and vassalize the whole of Southeast Asia all the way to the Philippines. Incredible. So we had hard power. It's very interesting. If you really study history, you'll learn so much and you'll be astonished as to what our ancestors were capable of compared to what we are capable of today.